Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Now in this video I'm going to be continuing my series from 2024 where I look at individuals who were jailed for the offence of murder in England. Now in my last video I did January, so in this video I'm going to be looking at February of 2024. And I've selected 12 cases involving 19 people who were jailed for the offence of murder. And I'll go through what they did, the name of the victim in the case or victims in the case, and then I'll go through the sentence that they received, as well as trying to pick out something noteworthy from the case. Welcome to my channel, Andy on Crime, where I talk about high-profile criminal cases and other aspects of criminal law. And if you would like to follow me on other social media channels, I am on TikTok. My handle is AndyOnCrime1, and I'm also on Twitter or X, and my handle is AndyOnCrime. So go and give me a follow if you are on any of those platforms. If you would like to support my channel, then you can become a member. Click the join button down below, and you can get some exclusive perks. Or you can click the link in the description and there may be a button appearing above where you can sign up with NordVPN for a huge discount on a range of their plans. And then finally, before we get into the video, just going to remind everyone that if you are convicted of murder in England and Wales, you receive a mandatory life sentence. The only question is how long the minimum term or tariff will be. With all that being said, let's get into the video. At number 1 is Alice Wood, who was sentenced on the 2nd of February. On the 6th of May 2022, Alice Wood, a philosophy student from Cheshire, ran over and killed her fiancé, 24-year-old Ryan Watson. Alice Wood became jealous at her fiancé after he apparently flirted with another woman at a party they had both attended to celebrate the birthday of a service user of the charity that Ryan worked for. This jealousy turned to anger and an argument ensued between them as they went home. Once back at their home that they shared together, Wood then got into her Ford Fiesta car and attempted to hit Ryan with her car, which she did twice, the second time fatally injuring Ryan as he dragged him along Sandback Road in the village of Road Heath before finally coming to a stop. After dragging Ryan 158 metres along the road, Wood then stopped and asked a nearby resident, "Please phone an ambulance, I think I've run over my boyfriend." Wood was then arrested by the police on suspicion of murder. At her trial, Alice Wood denied both murder and an alternative count of manslaughter, claiming, in her defence, that the death of Ryan had been a tragic accident. She stated during her evidence that she did not realise that she had hit Ryan and that he was trapped underneath her car. The jury disbelieved her and she was convicted on the 2nd of January 2024 of murdering Ryan. She was sentenced on Friday the 2nd of February 2024 where she was given a life sentence with a minimum term of 18 years. At number 2 on the list is Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, the killers of Brianna Jahi. They were sentenced on the 2nd of February 2024. On the 11th of February 2023, Brianna Jahi, a 16-year-old transgender girl, was fatally stabbed in Colchester Linear Park in Colchester, which is in the northeast of Warrington. She had been stabbed 28 times, including across her head, neck, chest and back. The following day, Jenkinson and Ratcliffe, who were 15 years old at the time of the murders, were arrested on suspicion of the murder of Brianna before being charged on the 15th of February 2023. A number of pre-trial hearings were conducted over the course of the next months before both of them pleaded not guilty to the charge. Their trial commenced on the 27th of November 2023. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence in the form of text messages that the defendants had previously tried to poison Brianna using an excessive amount of ibuprofen, resulting in Brianna becoming extremely sick in what her mother had thought at the time to be appendicitis. The defendants had allegedly poisoned her in this manner due to Brianna struggling with depression, meaning that no one would get suspicious if she suddenly died via an overdose of over-the-counter medication. After that failed attempt, the prosecution alleged that the defendants planned to kill her via repeated stabbings, with Ratcliffe saying that he wanted to see if it will scream like a man or a girl. The prosecution presented further text in which, prior to these attempts, Jenkinson was recorded as saying that she had become obsessed with Brianna and that Brianna was really different and really pretty. The defendants both argued that the other person was responsible for the murder and that they had only witnessed what had happened. On the 20th of December 2023, both defendants were found guilty by a jury. With juvenile defendants, the names of potential sentences to be awarded are different to adult sentences. So a youth who is given a life sentence, as would be known for an adult offender, this is called detention at His Majesty's pleasure for a juvenile. And on the 2nd of February 2024, Jenkinson was sentenced to be detained at His Majesty's pleasure with a minimum term of 22 years, and Ratcliffe was detained at His Majesty's pleasure with a minimum term of 20 years. Jenkinson will be eligible to apply for parole when she is around 38, and Ratcliffe when he is around 36. At number 3 is Carl Ellitts, who was sentenced on the 5th of February. Between the 25th of May and the 28th of May 2023, Ellitts, who was 26, embarked on a violent crime spree across Wolverhampton, committing multiple rapes, robberies, and culminating in the brutal murder of 48-year-old father of two, Roy Dealey Price. Ellitts, described by police as an extremely violent bully, targeted vulnerable individuals during this period, leaving a trail of trauma and devastation in his wake. The crime spree began on the 25th of May when Ellitts raped a woman who had approached him in St. Peter's Square. The following day he raped another woman who had shown concern for his apparent homelessness. Both women suffered significant psychological harm, including flashbacks and anxiety. In addition to these crimes, Ellitts committed several robberies. He forced one man to withdraw £190 from a cash machine, dragged a cyclist off his bike to steal £60 and a bank card, and robbed another man of his shoes and £30 after threatening him with a broken bottle. He also held a blade to another man's throat in an attempted robbery. On the 28th of May, Ellitts spotted Roy Dealey Price withdrawing £10 from a cash point at a Shell garage on Tettenhall Road. He followed Roy and launched a ferocious assault, stamping on his head, face and chest. After attempting to use Roy's bank card at a petrol station, Ellitts returned to the scene and continued the brutal attack, kicking and stamping on Roy's head at least 12 times. Ellitts was arrested on the 30th of May 2023 following a police appeal and assistance from the community. He was charged with 1 count of murder, 4 counts of rape, 3 counts of robbery, and 1 count of assault with intent to rob. He pleaded guilty to the murder and some of the other charges, whilst a jury found him guilty of the remaining rape charges. On the 5th of February 2024, Ellitts was sentenced at Wolverhampton Crown Court to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years. The judge described the murder as brutal and merciless, and highlighted Ellitts' history of violence and intimidation, particularly towards women. On the 30th of April 2024, following an appeal to the Attorney General's office under the unduly lenient sentence scheme, the Attorney General then appealed to the Court of Appeal, who increased Ellitts' sentence to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years, less time spent on remand. At number 4 is Abdul Yaro and Kavian Vaughans, who were sentenced on the 6th of February. On the night of the 3rd of September 2022, 17-year-old Shay Gordon attended an 18th birthday party on Lichfield Road in Mile End in East London. Unbeknownst to him, a group of young men had planned a violent confrontation targeting him. Shortly after midnight, Shay was chased through the streets and stabbed 3 times, twice in the leg and once fatally in the chest. Despite emergency surgery performed at the scene, he succumbed to his injuries. The attackers, Abdul Yaro, who was 19, and Kavian Vaughans, who was 18, both from Tottenham, along with Danian Witter Cameron and Giovanni Ade Johnson, both of whom were 18, had orchestrated the attack. Snapchat messages revealed their intent to confront Shay, and CCTV footage showed them loitering near the party venue wearing masks. Yaro was recorded discussing plans involving knives prior to the attack. During the trial at the Old Bailey, prosecutors presented evidence of a premeditated attack, and CCTV footage captured the group chasing Shay, who was already injured, through the streets. A video doorbell recorded one assailant asking, "Did I kill him, bro?" To which another replied, "Yeah, you did good. Did good." Shay's mother, Charisse James, described the moment police informed her of her son's death as every mother's worst nightmare. Shay was remembered as a humble and respectful young man. On the 6th of February 2024, Yaro and Vaughans were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. Witter Cameron and Adair Johnson were convicted of manslaughter and each received 8-year prison sentences, and the judge at sentencing highlighted the calculated and brutal nature of the attack. At number 5 is Alagie Jobe and Hussain Bar, who were sentenced on the 7th of February. On the 26th of November 2022, two 16-year-old boys, Charlie Batalo and Kieron Solanke, were fatally stabbed a mile apart in southeast London. Charlie was attacked on Sewell Road in Abbey Wood, while Kieron was found on Titmus Avenue in Thamesmead. The Metropolitan Police linked the killings to gang-related violence, noting that both victims were targeted as part of a planned ambush. The investigation revealed that a group of 5 young men, including Jobe and Bar, orchestrated the attack. CCTV footage showed the group arriving in a car that deliberately rammed into a motorbike ridden by Charlie. 3 individuals, including Kieron Solanke, then attacked Charlie with large knives. During the assault, Kieron was inadvertently stabbed by one of his accomplices. After the attack on Charlie, the group fled the scene in the same vehicle. Upon reaching Titmus Avenue, they abandoned the car and left the mortally wounded Kieron on the pavement. Despite emergency services' efforts, both Charlie and Kieron were pronounced dead at the scene. The Metropolitan Police launched an investigation, analysing CCTV footage and other evidence to identify the perpetrators. Detective Chief Inspector Kate Blackburn noted that the officers worked diligently to track the group's movements across southeast London, even when CCTV footage did not capture their faces. Clothing analysis, including trousers and footwear, were crucial in placing the suspects together before and after the attacks. Jobe and Bar, who were both 19 and from southeast London, were arrested and charged with the murders. During the trial at Inner London Crown Court, the prosecution presented evidence of the group's coordinated plan to attack individuals from a rival gang in Thamesmead. The court heard that Bar drove the group to the location and participated in the assault, while Jobe was among those who had attacked Charlie. On the 7th of February 2024, both Jobe and Bar were convicted of double murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. At number 6 is Melvin Lebaga-Idubor, who was sentenced on the 8th of February. On the 23rd of April 2023, University of Nottingham student Lebaga-Idubor fatally stabbed fellow undergraduate Kwabena Osipuku during a drug-related altercation near the university's Waterside campus. The incident stemmed from a dispute over cannabis, with Lebaga-Idubor confronting Kwabena about selling drugs on what he considered his territory. The confrontation escalated, leading to Lebaga-Idubor stabbing Kwabena twice, once in the neck and once in the torso, resulting in Kwabena's death at the scene. Prior to the fatal encounter, Lebaga-Idubor had threatened Kwabena in an on-campus kitchen and stole a bag of cannabis worth approximately £1,000. He lured Kwabena to New South Bridge Road, a location he believed lacked CCTV coverage, intending to continue the confrontation without witnesses. Following the stabbing, Lebaga-Idubor sought assistance from his friend Antonio Huyen, who helped him evade authorities. Huyen transported Lebaga-Idubor to Northampton General Hospital, but left before treatment was administered. He then burned Lebaga-Idubor's blood-stained clothing and provided him with fresh clothes for his escape to London. Lebaga-Idubor subsequently fled to France with intentions to travel onwards to Nigeria, but he was eventually persuaded to return and was arrested. In November 2023, after a 6-week trial at Northampton Crown Court, Lebaga-Idubor was found guilty of murder and possession of a bladed article. The court heard that he had a history of carrying knives, including a previous incident in October 2022. The judge noted that while Kwabena was also armed during the altercation, Lebaga-Idubor's actions demonstrated an intent to cause serious harm. On the 8th of February 2024, Lebaga-Idubor was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. The judge acknowledged mitigating factors, including Lebaga-Idubor's age and lack of prior convictions, but emphasised the severity of the crime and its impact upon Kwabena's family. Hussain was given a 14-month suspended sentence for attempting to pervert the course of justice. At number 7 is Antoinette Sheppard and Kieron Spicer, who were sentenced on the 9th of February. On the 18th of June 2023, 74-year-old Michael Brady was lured to his death by 44-year-old Antoinette Sheppard and 17-year-old Kieron Spicer at Sheppard's home on Bowness Close in Coventry. Sheppard had befriended Michael, a vulnerable and ailing man, and invited him to her residence under false pretenses. CCTV footage captured Michael entering the property shortly after 6 p.m. Once inside, Michael was subjected to a brutal and premeditated attack. Spicer reportedly struck him with a machete, targeting his head and shoulder before stamping on his chest, causing multiple bone fractures. As Michael begged for his life, Sheppard used a blue rope to strangle him to death. After the murder, the pair placed Michael's body in a large television box and concealed it in a shed. They stole his bank card, withdrawing over £300, and they purchased alcohol. Their actions were discovered after neighbours raised concerns, prompting police to search the property and find Michael's body. During police interviews, both Sheppard and Spicer attempted to blame each other for the murder. Investigators uncovered messages between the two discussing plans to harm someone, including a text from Spicer stating, "I am on one, I am going to hurt people." Spicer was later found after confiding in a social worker about being asked to hide a body. The court heard that Sheppard had groomed Spicer to commit offences, and neither showed remorse for their actions. On the 9th of February 2024, at Warwick Crown Court, Sheppard was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years, while Spicer received a minimum term of 18 years. The judge lifted reporting restrictions on Spicer's identity, citing a strong public interest in full and unrestricted reporting of the case. At number 8 is Jordell Menzies, who was sentenced on the 12th of February. On the 1st of May 2022, 32-year-old music manager Emmanuel Odunlami was fatally stabbed in the City of London after attending a private birthday event near St Paul's Cathedral. The attack was orchestrated by a group of men aiming to steal what they believed was a high-value designer watch. Unbeknownst to them, the watch was a counterfeit Patek Philippe Nautilus, which, if genuine, would have been worth approximately £125,000. The incident began when the security guard, Kavian Heterachi, employed at the event, noticed Emmanuel's watch and covertly recorded him on his mobile phone. He then sent the footage to his accomplices, marking Emmanuel as a target. After the event concluded, Heterachi tipped off the group, who then positioned themselves to ambush Emmanuel as he left the venue. As Emmanuel departed the restaurant with a friend, the assailants followed him. Among them was 27-year-old Jordell Menzies from Brent, who led the attack. Menzies sprinted towards Emmanuel, brandishing a knife, and stabbed him in the heart as Emmanuel attempted to flee. The group then fled the scene in a Mercedes, taking the counterfeit watch with them. Emergency services arrived promptly and Emmanuel was transported to hospital. Despite medical efforts, he was pronounced dead shortly after midnight on the 2nd of May 2022. The City of London Police launched an extensive investigation, leading to the arrest and charging of the individuals involved. 3 other individuals were also convicted in relation to the same crime. Louis van Dross and Quincy French were found guilty of manslaughter and robbery, each receiving 15-year prison sentences. Heterachi was convicted of manslaughter and robbery, resulting in a 13-year sentence. Additionally, Antonius Kafuri was found guilty of perverting the course of justice for providing a false statement to the police. Menzies was found guilty of murder and robbery at the Old Bailey in December of 2023. And on the 12th of February 2024, Menzies was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years. At number 9 is Daniel Balazs, who was sentenced on the 13th of February. On the evening of the 9th of August 2023, 21-year-old Daniel Balazs fatally stabbed 28-year-old father of 2 Daniel Mixka on Newton Street in Barnsley. The attack was driven by Balazs' jealousy over Daniel's relationship with his ex-partner and their young son. Balazs confronted Daniel outside a relative's home, where he stabbed him in the chest with a 12cm knife during an altercation that lasted no more than 11 seconds. After the stabbing, Balazs fled the scene and travelled to London in an attempt to evade capture. However, less than 24 hours later, he voluntarily surrendered to police in the capital. During the trial at Sheffield Crown Court, Balazs claimed that he acted in self-defence. However, the jury took just 50 minutes to find him guilty of murder, rejecting his defence of self-defence. He had already pleaded guilty to possession of a bladed article prior to the trial. On the 13th of February 2024, Judge Graham Reed's King's Counsel sentenced Balazs to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years. The judge acknowledged Balazs' young age, lack of previous convictions and immaturity as mitigating factors, but emphasised the severity of the crime he had committed. At number 10 is Sam Deery and Sebastian Niven, who were sentenced on the 20th of February. On the evening of the 15th of December 2021, 32-year-old Farhad Kahili was fatally stabbed while walking along Surbiton Crescent in Kingston in southwest London. As he approached the junction with Anglesey Road, he was ambushed by 2 individuals, 28-year-old Sean Deery and 15-year-old Sebastian Niven. The attack was sudden and brutal, leaving Farhad with multiple stab wounds. Despite managing to stagger to Surbiton Road, he collapsed and was pronounced dead at the scene by emergency responders. The Metropolitan Police launched an investigation, reviewing local CCTV footage which captured the attack. Deery was apprehended shortly after the incident, having been mistakenly identified as a suspect in a separate robbery nearby. Niven fled the scene but was arrested at his home the following day, where blood-stained clothing linked him to the murder. During police interviews, both Deery and Niven refused to answer questions. However, the evidence against them was substantial, leading to charges of murder. At the Old Bailey, it was revealed that Deery had known Farhad since childhood and had orchestrated the attack, enlisting Niven, who he referred to as a little cousin, to assist him. The court heard that Deery and Niven had waited for Farhad, choosing a vantage point with a view of his family home. They attempted to disguise themselves by drawing up their hoods and covering their faces. Farhad was unaware of the impending danger and was listening to music and drinking from a bottle when he was attacked. The judge described the attack as a brutal knife attack on a man in a situation where he was defenceless. The judge also noted that while the motive remained unclear, the ferocity and intent to cause significant harm were evident. On the 20th of February 2024 at the Old Bailey, Deery was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years, while Sebastian Niven was detained for life with a minimum term of 14 years. At number 11 is Mohammed Moshaer Ali, Antonio Afflick-McLeod and Aaron Campbell, who were sentenced on the 28th of February. On the evening of the 19th of November 2019, 40-year-old father of 2, Ian Mia, was fatally shot in the head outside of his home on Nelson Street in Whitechapel in East London. He succumbed to his injuries 2 days later. The murder was orchestrated by 3 men: Mohammed Moshaer Ali, who was 31 and from Dagenham, Antonio Afflick-McLeod, who was 32 and from Ilford, and Aaron Campbell, who was 32 and from Fulham. The trio were found guilty of Iron's murder following a 3rd trial at the Old Bailey in January 2024. Evidence presented during the trial revealed that Ali lured Iron out of his home under the guise of a drug deal. Iron entered a Honda Civic parked nearby, where he briefly interacted with the occupants before sending a message to Ali stating, "Viewing done." As Iron walked back home, a passenger from a black Volkswagen Polo approached and shot him in the head. The shooter then returned to the vehicle, which fled the scene alongside the Honda Civic. The investigation uncovered that Afflick-McLeod had purchased a SIM card the day before the murder, which was used to communicate with Ali. Upon arrest, a significant quantity of drugs and a sawn-off shotgun were discovered at Afflick-McLeod's residence. During legal proceedings, it emerged that Ali had conspired with a prison officer, Victoria Bjuko, to pervert the course of justice. While the defendants were on remand at HMP Belmarsh, Ali persuaded Bjuko to fabricate a false confession implicating Campbell and Afflick-McLeod in a plot to rob Ali of drugs, suggesting that Iron was killed as a result of mistaken identity. Bjuko received £500 and the promise of gifts in exchange for her false testimony. Bjuko's fabricated statement led to the collapse of a previous trial, causing significant delays in the judicial process. She was later arrested and pleaded guilty to perverting the course of justice and was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months in prison. Ali also admitted to the same charge. On the 28th of February 2024, sentencing took place at the Old Bailey. Ali received a life sentence with a minimum term of 36 years, alongside a concurrent sentence for perverting the course of justice. Afflick-McLeod was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years, including concurrent sentences for drug offences and possession of a firearm, and Campbell was handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 31 years. At number 12 is Simon Steeves, who was sentenced on the 29th February. On the 25th of October 2023, 71-year-old Steeves fatally stabbed his wife, 59-year-old Denise Steeves, at their home in Diamond Meadow Lodge Park, Western Road, Breen in Somerset. Following the attack, Steeves called emergency services and informed them of the incident. Emergency responders arrived promptly and attempted to resuscitate Denise, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. During police interviews, Steeves admitted to the killing but claimed he had no recollection of picking up the knife. He stated that the attack occurred out of the blue following an argument with his wife. There had been no prior reports of domestic violence between the couple. Steeves was arrested at the scene and charged with murder the following day. He appeared at Bristol Crown Court on the 7th of February 2024, where he pleaded guilty to the charge, and the court scheduled a sentencing hearing which took place on the 29th of February 2024. At the sentencing, the court heard that Steeves had no previous history of violence and that the attack was unprovoked. The judge acknowledged the severity of the crime and the impact on Denise's family and friends. Steeves was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years and 2 months.